Today we're going to go over packaging a patient in the litter slash Stokes, which is going to be located on the Rescue 42 in the crossover compartment. When we pull it out of the rig, you're going to see some key components that we don't want to miss. One of them is going to be our harness, which is going to end up around the waist area of the patient, and this yellow strap, which is going to actually connect into the harness and kind of hold them stable as the litter shifts in a more vertical type of position. You're also going to see a backboard in the litter, which in some cases we may decide not to use, especially if we're going to do any kind of pike and pivot or more advanced lift with pick-off or any kind of rope rescue that's going to take a little bit more of an advanced rigging. But if we are going to use the litter with the backboard, we're going to want to take out our backboard, package our patient in the backboard as we would in any other scenario, and then transfer them over into the litter and make sure that all of our straps are connected. We don't have anything hanging out, and we don't forget anything. One of the things to consider if we're going to use the backboard is that if we have any lower spinal injury or any kind of hip fracture or anything along that lines, we're not probably going to use the hip harness. We're going to have to use a little bit more of an advanced rigging system to hold that backboard in place while it's in the Stokes so it doesn't slide up and down on the Stokes. And we'll kind of go over that and what that looks like with a patient.
Okay, so we're going to show you first how to rig the patient without a backboard. Unless the patient has any spinal injuries or spinal precautions, we're going to load them directly into the Stokes basket, or we're going to do a vacuum split directly into the Stokes basket. When you are loading into the Stokes, it's especially helpful, one, to pre-rig your Stokes. And what I mean by that is we want to get all of our straps undone and get them out of the way so they don't get like tucked under the patient. We're also going to pre-rig our hip harness. We're just going to set it in place. That way when they get into the Stokes, we get them loaded, we can just quickly wrap their legs and get their hips harnessed done. That's going to be our first step. Okay, so once we get the patient in the Stokes, either by Mega Mover or just lifting the patients, we're going to get started. We're going to start at the hip straps. So we'll come in between the legs and lock down. You'll see your locks right here. This kind of acts as their harness. So you want it high and tight. And then we're going to start at the head and work our way down. So we'll start with our yellow strap, which goes in between the hip harness and locks in up top of the other yellow strap. We want them to be very tight, so it's easy to kind of go one strap at a time. Make sure that these are on their shoulders. Okay, everything's tight, they're locked in. Then we'll move to the blue straps. So all of our straps have O-rings that connect to sort of this like padded connection. So again, going from the top to the bottom and tightening as we go, we're going to lock our O-rings into the padded straps. And then we'll do the same thing with the red strap. Okay, once again, we want all of our straps tight. So we're gonna just double check, make sure everything's tight and he's fully strapped in. Once the patient is fully strapped in, we wanna pad any void spaces. If you use the vacuum splint, that's really helpful as it does automatically provide some padding. In this case, which we didn't, we're gonna go using either towels, blankets, jackets, whatever you can find. We'll pad behind the neck, behind the hips, anywhere that there's void spaces between the patient and any hard surfaces or the backboard itself. So now we're going to show you how to load the patient that does have spinal injuries and how we're going to use the backboard. So for starters, it's still really helpful to pre-rig the hip harness. And also it's super important that we get our straps out of the way as best as we can. We're going to roll our victim, and as we roll, we're going to check his spine, make sure there isn't apparent injuries or see what we're looking at. And then I'm going to put my hip harness in place. So I'm going to slide one strap across underneath him, and I'm going to try to get this placed in between his legs, about where it needs to be placed once the patient is rolled back over. So after we get our hip harness placed, then we'll then we're going to get our backboard in place as well. That way we're only moving our patient one time. So I have my backboard in place and my hip harness in place. And then on your count, we'll go ahead and we'll roll it back. 1, 2, 3. Okay. We're going to work to get all of our straps back to where they need to be. And then we'll get started with our hip harness again first, just like we did in the last one. We have him strapped to the backboard, and then we've lifted and moved him into our Stokes basket. And we're going to go through the same processes without the Stokes basket. We're going to start at the head with our yellow strap. I'm also going to work to try to get any twists out if possible. And we're going to just work our way head down.